In Seattle's Elmwood Park, an old wooden bench stood quietly beneath a towering maple tree. For most passersby, it was nothing more than a place to rest. But for millionaire developer Graham Hart, it was sacred ground. This bench carried the last living memory of his late fiancée, Elenina Hart, who had died 3 years earlier from a sudden, undiagnosed heart condition. It was the place they had sat together, laughed together, dreamed together before everything fell apart. Every morning, Graham's car passed the bench on his way to work. Usually, he looked at it only briefly, his grief too heavy to linger. But recently, something unusual had caught his eye. Fresh flowers. Wildflowers. Always carefully placed on the bench. The third time he noticed them, Graham's chest tightened. They weren't just any flowers. They were Forget-Me-Nots Elenina's favorite, from behind his tinted window. Graham watched a young woman in an oversized sweater set the flowers down with gentle care. Her name was Emma Collins, though he didn't know it yet. A pet sitter by profession, Emma had made this her secret ritual, leaving flowers on the bench every morning before work. To her, it was a peaceful act, a way of bringing beauty into a lonely city. She had no idea anyone was watching, least of all the man whose life was tied so deeply to that very bench. "Graham's conflict, sir," his driver reminded. "Your meeting starts in 15 minutes. But Graham didn't care. Something about this stranger's ritual stirred more than grief inside him. Curiosity, maybe, even hope. He stepped out of his car and touched the flowers. For 3 years he had lived with nothing but loss, but now suddenly this small gesture had disrupted his numbness. Who was leaving them, and why? At that same moment, pressure from his company was mounting. His ambitious colleague, Lauren Blake, was pushing him to finalize the Elmwood Plaza project, a massive luxury development that would erase Elmwood Park completely. Investors demanded signatures. Demolition permits were waiting, but Graham hesitated. This wasn't just a park. This was Elenina's sanctuary. And now, someone else seemed to understand its worth. The meeting determined to uncover the truth. Graham returned early the next morning. From behind the maple tree, he watched Emma approach with another Bacchus, time daisies. "Excuse me," he said. Stepping forward, Emma nearly dropped the flowers in surprise. "Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not supposed to? I didn't know this bench was." Graham raised his hand. "Please. I've just been wondering who's been leaving these. They're just wildflowers," Emma said softly. "Nothing special." "They're exactly the kind she loved," Graham murmured, before catching himself. He extended a hand. "I'm Graham Hart, this bench. It's dedicated to someone I loved very much." Only then did Emma notice the small bronze plaque. "In loving memory of Elenina Hart," her eyes widened. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I can stop if it bothers you." But Graham shook his head. "No, please don't." Something about her sincerity touched him. In a world of money and manipulation, here was someone who did things for no other reason than kindness. A growing bond days turned into weeks. Graham found himself drawn back to the bench, not just for Elenina's memory, but for Emma's company. Their conversations grew longer. She told him about her struggling pet-sitting business, her dream of opening an animal shelter, her love of plants and simple joys. In return, Graham told her about Elenina, about how she had challenged his company's destructive practices, how she believed cities needed spaces of nature to breathe, and how she had taught him to see beauty in small things. One day, he asked Emma to look after his golden retriever, Baxter, while he traveled for work. Nervous but thrilled, she agreed. At Graham's penthouse, she noticed how empty his world really was. Perfect furniture, glass awards, but little warmth. Only a few photos of Elenina broke the sterility. Emma's presence changed that. She filled the silence with laughter, honesty, and her small habit of leaving wildflowers wherever she went. Graham, who had not smiled in years, found himself smiling again. Lauren's jealousy, but not everyone welcomed this change. Lauren Blake, Graham's ambitious partner, had been waiting for years for him to move on, and she had hoped that meant moving toward her. She viewed Emma as a threat, not just to Graham's heart, but to the Elmwood Plaza deal, so she acted. One afternoon, she accidentally met Emma in the park. With a sympathetic smile, she spun a cruel story. "Graham never told you?" she asked sweetly. "Elalania didn't die from illness. They were in a car accident. They were arguing. Graham was driving. He blames himself. That's why he wants the park gun. He needs to erase the guilt." Emma's heart sank. Could it be true? Lauren added one final dagger. "The project begins next month." "Didn't he tell you?" Shaken, Emma pulled away from Graham. She stopped meeting him at the bench. Her texts grew short, her excuses constant. Graham was devastated. The truth revealed finally. Unable to bear it, Graham confronted Emma at the bench. "Why are you avoiding me? Did I do something wrong?" Emma admitted the truth. "Lauren told me everything. About the accident, about your guilt, about the development." Graham's face darkened. "That's a lie. Elalania died from a heart condition. There was no accident." At that moment, Lauren arrived, portfolio in hand, pressing Graham to sign demolition permits. But instead of signing, Graham demanded an emergency board meeting in front of his investors. He exposed Lauren's lies about Elalania, about the project timeline, about manipulating him. He presented new designs that preserved the park. Honoring Elalina's vision of sustainable architecture, Lauren, cornered, tried to defend herself. "Everything I did was for you, Graham. That girl is just a distraction." But the board sided with Graham. Lauren was fired. The Elmwood Plaza project was canceled. Elmwood Park would remain untouched. Healing and renewal yet, even with the truth revealed, Emma still hesitated. Was there really space for her in Graham's World 1? Already filled with the ghost of Elalania? The answer came a few days later when she found him at the bench, laying down flowers for the first time in years. "I miss her," Graham said softly. "But she taught me something. Love doesn't vanish when it's shared. It multiplies. And Emma, you've reminded me of that." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She sat beside him, their bouquets resting together on the bench. From that moment on, they began building something new, not to replace Elalania, but to honor her. Elalania's garden. 6 months later, Elalania's garden cafe opened at the park's edge. A sunlit space filled with wildflowers, it became a sanctuary for the community. Inside, a donation jar for heart disease research sat beside photographs of Elmwood Park through the seasons. Graham and Emma ran it together, he handling the business, she filling it with warmth. Their bench, remained untouched beneath the maple tree. 1 year after their first meeting, they placed a new plaque beside Elalania's, where memories meet new beginnings. Epilogue. Elmwood Park flourished. The community, inspired by Graham's change of heart, invested in gardens, children's play areas, and outdoor concerts. The cafe became a neighborhood landmark, a place of healing, connection, and hope. Even Lauren, years later, found her path in sustainable development, finally learning the lesson she had once ignored, that true strength lies in building, not destroying. As for Graham and Emming, each evening, they returned to the bench where it all began, sometimes in silence, sometimes with laughter, always with flowers, because sometimes life's most powerful stories begin with the smallest acts of kindness. A stranger, a bench, and a handful of wildflowers.